key to finding key staff members, great people, A players that are going to accelerate the growth of your team is not what you think. Most people think that the key to a great hire is having a great job posting, creating the right requirements for the job, vetting the right candidate. The truth is that couldn't be further from the truth. There is one key thing for you to understand when it comes to hiring, and this one key thing is going to change the way you look at it. It's going to change the way you approach it, and it's going to allow you to find true A players for your team. Hi, I'm Moshe Amsel, host of the Profit with Law podcast, and we're here for another episode. This is part 4C. So this is the third part of a 5-part series, and this is part 4. So I broke it into 3 chunks because I just felt like I don't like having something that's 2 hours long. I for somebody to listen to. I think that that's very difficult to consume. I've listened to those kinds of podcasts, and so this particular part, which is all around hiring, staffing, building a team around you to create results, needed to be done in chunks. And you should go back and listen to the previous episodes if you missed them, where we discussed how do you know if you need people, how do you know who you need, and how to approach the overall concept of hiring and as it fits into the growth of your business, and the chicken and egg analogy, understanding that hiring people and bringing them on to your business is not when you're ready, it's to prepare for being ready, and that you're always bringing people on before you need them, or before the thing that they're going to create comes to fruition. And that's a big mistake and a big mindset shift that people need to make. Now we're going to dive into, how do you find these people? What is that process? And here's the big mistake that we make. We come from a world of what is out there is what we do, right? So what we've seen done, the experiences we've gone through, and everybody knows if you want to hire somebody, you post a job posting, you put it out there, right? And you wait for people to apply. And if you want to be more proactive, you can pay for the service where you get access to a library of resumes of people who have already raised their hand and said, hey, I'm available, if you want to hire me. The problem is that most A players may not be looking for a job. They may not even have their resume posted, and therefore making those efforts are not necessarily going to help you find the people that you're looking for, the people that you need. As a matter of fact, the opportunity to find good people is all around you every single day. When you interact with somebody who impresses you, you should be thinking, imagine if this person were on my team. Is this somebody that I would want on my team? And if yes, why aren't you having that conversation? Most of us feel uncomfortable doing that. But here's the thing. If we think about the other side of our business, so this is the building the staff side. Building the staff side is probably the most important part of our business, but we always put on a pedestal the other side of it, which we think is the more important part, and it's not, right? And that is marketing and sales. As a matter of fact, marketing and sales is way easier compared to building a great team. But when it comes to marketing and sales is uncomfortable too. Having a conversation with somebody and trying to get them to part with their money to buy the thing that you know they need, but they don't see that themselves and you have to help them see it, that's uncomfortable too. But we understand we need to do it. So somehow we find a way to overcome that and we go and do it. Building a team is critical. That is how your business is going to grow. That is what makes businesses successful. So we have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. But here's the thing. I opened up saying that, the hiring process is different than, one little tweak is going to change the way that you think about it. And here is that tweak. Here's that golden nugget. Okay. We need to approach the hiring process the same way that we approach marketing. Meaning, we need to understand who it is we're trying to find and how we're going to find that person, it's not always going to be the job boards. As a matter of fact, it often is not the job boards, right? When it comes to marketing, some people spend a gazillion dollars on winning at SEO, right? But I would argue that for an audience that's not problem aware, for example, estate planning, most people don't walk around saying, oh my gosh, I need an estate plan. How do I find out how to create an estate plan? Nobody, well, not nobody, but you have 100% of the market that's potential clients for you, and maybe 10%. And that's probably being very generous. It's probably 1%, but let's just say 10% of the overall market might be going and saying, how do I find an estate planning attorney? How do I create an estate plan? Find an estate planning attorney near me. So SEO, Google pay-per-click, Google LSAs, all of those marketing methods that are the lifeblood of some other businesses like criminal defense, where somebody gets arrested and now they want to know, where do I go for help? They are problem aware, so they're going to search for a solution. People who are not problem aware are not going to search for a solution. Instead, you need to interrupt their lives. You need to come in and you need to tell them what the problem is so that they become educated. That's why a model with workshops, webinars, stuff like that works really, really well in estate planning. It will not work in criminal defense. When you understand the difference on the marketing side, you can now also understand the difference on the hiring side. There are roles that there's so many people looking for a job, so many qualified candidates, that putting a job out in the job boards, you're going to get a ton of really qualified people and you're not going to have to look any further. It's easier. It's the lower hanging fruit. But then there are jobs where it's slim pickings. There's not a lot of people who are out there searching for a job. All the good people are taken, is what it seems like, right? And specifically, this is attorneys. In most markets, it is really hard to find an attorney. Attorneys are hard to come by. Yet, we can still find them, but we have to change how we think about looking for them. Other examples are leadership roles. Leadership roles can be hard to find. We got to change the way that we go about filling these positions. We can't just put a job posting out there and expect that the A players are going to come through there. Most A players are gainfully employed. They're somewhat satisfied in their roles, but there's something missing. Maybe they're not getting enough potential for moving their career forward. Maybe they are, they've been dealing with something at work that has been not enough of a pain to go and look for a job, but enough of a pain for them to jump at the opportunity presented to them. But there are roles where they're not on the job boards, and posting a job on your careers page and putting it up on Indeed is not going to get you the results that you want. But getting into their inbox, getting in their face will. So before we talk about what goes into a job posting or what goes into an offer for somebody who you're trying to give a job to, the very first place we need to first thing we need to talk about is, how are you finding them? And that's the first question we should be asking, is how big is the market for this job? And then what you could do is you could do some due diligence, right? So you can look for the position you're looking for and see how many postings you can find. If it's geography specific, see how many postings are in your area. But more importantly, if you go on to, say, LinkedIn careers, and I'm not sure if Indeed can do this, but LinkedIn job search, they tell you how many people have applied for that posting. So you can see if this has got 100 applications or if this has 8 applications. If it's got 8 applications, you probably don't have a lot of people banging the door down for a job like that. You can probably expect similar results, even if you kill it on your job listing or your job ad. So that's like a first step where you can kind of figure it out. You can also use your own intuition. Like you may know, like I'm hiring an attorney. That's not going to be an easy one. Or even if I find somebody through the job boards, the candidate quality is most certainly or most likely to be lower, and I want higher quality. So if we're not putting a job in the job boards, and by the way, just because you're not going to find your clients on Google doesn't mean you don't have a Google My Business listing, and doesn't mean that you don't focus on getting reviews so that it looks good, right? So just because you don't think you're going to get somebody from the job boards doesn't mean you don't put a job posting up there, right? Like you do the thing for the lowest hanging fruit, but that is not what you expect to produce results, and therefore you're not going to put it up there and then wait a month to work your way through resumes, see what comes in, because you're losing precious time in filling this role. And that's a very key thing to understand, is like, there is the cost of not hiring somebody. The longer that we wait without filling this role, the longer that role is not producing for us, and it's holding us back from doing something bigger, better. So when it comes to this, we need to understand this entering into it so that we don't lose time. We don't lose the opportunity of time that's on our hands to enhance and grow off of that role. Here's the way I want you to think about so here's the concept, right? Like, we need to figure out how to get in front of somebody who has a job, but they would be intrigued by our opportunity. They'd be interested. They'd raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested. So how do we get their attention? How do we get in front of somebody who isn't actively looking, right? Or we don't know that they're looking. And there's a couple of different things that I want you to think about here, but at the end of the day, it's all about just getting in front of them. How do we get in front of them? Number one, and Alex Hormozi in one of his recent books talked about like how many people we have a second degree contact with. So if we and it's wild, right? Because if you take your contacts in your phone, your friends on Facebook, your connections on Instagram, emails in your email system, right? If you take all of those different contacts and eliminate the ones you don't know, okay? So a lot of us have people in there that we don't know. But all the ones that we know, even if we know them on the periphery, right? We've come across them a few times. We know who they are. How many contacts do you have a direct connection with? You've spoken to them before. You could pick up the phone and call them. You could send them an email, and it wouldn't be you're spamming them, right? How many people is that? For most people, it's a lot. It's 2,000 to 10,000, right? Now think about this. Each of those 2,000 to 10,000 people has their own list of 2,000 to 10,000 people. Now there's going to be overlap, but let's just use 2,000 as the number. If you take 2,000 and you multiply it times 2,000, your immediate contacts gives you access to a circle of influence of 4 million people. 4 million. It's wild. So before we make ourselves crazy in looking anywhere else, look at your own contacts. If you already have a team, think about your team. Each of them has their own circle of influence with a 4 million reach. If you have 30 team members, we'll just multiply that 4 million times 30. That's 120 million. We have access to a lot of people. Maybe not the right people, but here's the thing. What if you reached out to every one of these people in your circle of influence, every contact on your phone, and every email contact, every Facebook friend, every Instagram connection, and you simply sent a message that said something like, hey, I'm looking to hire position X. If you happen to come across anybody or know anybody who might be a fit and might be interested, would you be kind enough to share this with them? Here's a link to the job description. Here's what we're doing in that moment. First of all, we're not asking them, is this for you? Because that's an immediate yes, no. And if it's no, then they've responded, they're done, right? Instead, we're asking them, can you keep this on top of your mind? Can you think about this so that the next time you're at a cocktail party, the next time you're interacting with buddies, you go on a family vacation, and somebody happens to say, oh, my brother is a top-notch attorney in blah, blah, blah industry, right? Oh, really? A friend of mine is looking to hire somebody just like that. Do you think that your person might be interested? And that's how that connection gets made. That stuff happens every day in real life. And yes, you can also grow your business this way. You can also do this on the marketing side, but let's stay focused here. So you have direct contact with and direct access to millions of people if you simply execute on this. Now, I say you, but you know I am a big proponent of delegation, not necessarily being the one to do this. So if you have an assistant on your team, you have somebody that you can just log them into your Facebook account and have them message every single one of your connections, that'll be way more efficient and way more likely it gets done. And this is a one and done process. You don't need to get involved in a whole conversation. It's basically just, hey, if you think of somebody, let me know or make the introduction, and boom, you move on, right? So that is like the very first thing that you can do in proactive outreach when you're looking to fill a job, because chances are, especially since you're an attorney, if you're looking for an attorney or you're looking for a COO that has experience with law firms or anything like that, chances are that you're going to connect with somebody who says, oh yeah, I have somebody for you. And you won't have to look any further. So in the low-hanging fruit arena, the lowest hanging fruit is when there's problem aware, when people are looking for a job and you put a job posting up and they find the job. The next lowest hanging fruit is all the people you have a connection with, because there's a good chance that somebody there has a connection. They can think of somebody, they can make a connection for you, and that connection may pan out. That might be the person you're looking for. Taking it one step further, there are things we can do to go into the marketplace to find people. If we go back to our marketing analogy, when we go to market to somebody, let's take our example, right? An estate planning attorney, right? If they're doing a workshop or a webinar and they want to fill the room virtually or in person, they got to get in front of people somehow. So there's different ways we can do that. We can talk to referral partners, like let's connect with financial advisors and let's do a collaborative event with them, or run some meta ads. Let's get in people's faces with some advertising, or do a postcard campaign, do buy a list and do an email blitz. Don't recommend that, but I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do to get in front of people and give them the opportunity to come attend your workshop. Well, what if we just take all of those ideas and just bring them over to the hiring side? And we say, hey, is there an opportunity to collaborate with a partner who has access to the people I'm looking for? Is there an opportunity to do some sort of blitz to get in front of them? So there's some specific things that we can do. One of them is automated outreach on LinkedIn, where you can use something called Duck Soup. It's a tool that you can invest in their cloud piece, which is what I recommend, but you can go cheaper with their on the desktop piece. But it allows you to automate connections with people on LinkedIn, and in that connection, you can send a message to them. So you can literally go filter on all attorneys in within 50 miles of me and send them a connection request and say, hey, I'm looking to hire this and this type of attorney. If you know anybody, would love it if you can make the connection. And that's your connection request message to them. So then it shows up as a connection request to them. They see it. That's the cheap way to do it. The more expensive way, you can just buy in-mail credits. You can just send them a message directly on LinkedIn. Also, you can scrape email addresses from LinkedIn and you can send an email that basically just says, hey, I saw you on I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I'm so and so, I'm an attorney, you doing this, that, and the other. We're looking to fill this and this role. I was hoping you might have an idea of somebody in your network that would be a good fit for this. Would love it if you thought of somebody, if you made that connection. Really simple. It's the same message over and over again. We're not asking them, are you interested in this job? We're asking them, do you know it? Do you know somebody? But the thing is that these activities, these things are the things that are going to pay dividends. And then lastly, of course, there's AI now, right? So like everything I just described with the tools and, going on LinkedIn, you can have AI do that for you as well, right? So you can basically prompt AI and build your own little app and automate this whole process of outreach and cast the net as wide as you want. There's no reason why, if you're in New York, an attorney in California might not be connected with somebody in New York that would be a good fit for you, right? So don't think of I'm looking specifically within 20 miles of myself because that's who I'm looking for. No, I'm looking for somebody who knows somebody. For all I know, somebody in California knows somebody here because they went to school together, because they grew up together. Who knows, right? So like, we don't know. So you can cast the net as wide as you want. The only reason when I gave the example, I gave a geographic circumference is because you do need to keep it contained. In other words, like there's limits on how many people you can reach out to in a certain amount of time with all these tools. And by those limits, it's more likely that somebody in my geography is going to know people in my geography, right? So the probability of finding somebody that way is higher, which is why that's where I would start. So we didn't get into any of the nuanced details of how do you write a job posting? What do you pay your people, right? But this is a fundamental piece that people, A, they don't know, and B, even if they intuitively know it, they don't make the effort. And it's the same on the marketing and sales side, right? Like everybody knows that if I got really good at being a connector, that business would come in. We call it business development, whatever it is, right? And we see people who are really good at it and we see them succeed, but most people don't do it. And they don't do it because I don't know if they're lazy, they're afraid, or they're not convinced it's going to work. But what needs to happen here is, if you want to get the results, if you want to build that great team, it's going to come by you executing in this way. It's going to come by you getting out of your comfort zone and going out there and putting this job out there in places where it wouldn't be found otherwise. That's what's going to help you fill the role. Now, here's some quick key points. A players typically interview their employer the same way that the employer interviews them. So if you sit in an interview with somebody and they're not asking questions about you, that's a pretty bad sign. That means that they've approached this completely from their perspective of, I'm going to present myself as a candidate and I want to know if you are willing to hire me. An A player wants to know if the environment's going to be good enough for them, if they're going to like it there, if it's going to be in alignment with their own core values. So that's a really good sign if they're also interviewing you in the process. They're asking good questions and stuff like that. There was another thing along that point, which I totally forgot just now as I'm speaking. We'll get back to it. The actual job posting itself, go back to the marketing analogy, right? Like, what is the purpose of the job posting? It's to capture somebody's attention. If we go in the job market, they all look the same. Right at the beginning, they talk about what the job qualifications are, or they talk about the company, right? But what we need to really think about is, for somebody who's looking for this role, what is it that they want? Do they want career advancement? Do they want flexibility in their work schedule? Do they want a small environment instead of a big environment? We got to think about all the things that are things that they want, or problems that they have in their current job that they're trying to solve. And then you got to write your job posting as if it's a piece of marketing material. It's got to have a good hook that draws somebody in. It's got to have continuous information that gets them to want to continue reading on in the posting. And most people have filters built in. The filters that are built in when they're looking for a job is right off the bat. Like if you just put yourself in the shoes of somebody looking for a job, even though money is not necessarily the motivator, even though work schedule is not necessarily the motivator, these are things that people look at and they immediately decide whether they want to move forward before they even read your hook. They're going to look at the job title itself. That's number one. The second thing they're going to look is they're going to look to see, is this in my location? Is it remote? Or is it in my geography? Because if it's outside my geography, I'm less interested. Now, there is something that can overcome that, which is if they look at the pay and the pay is so high that they can think of themselves as relocating for this job, then that might be something that attracts them. But that's the third thing. The third thing is they're going to look at the pay. Big mistake that people putting out. A big mistake that people make putting these job descriptions up is often leaving the salary or a range off. And when you do that, there's two things that happen. One, you're going to lose people who are perfectly qualified, but they say, oh, there's a reason that they're not posting the salary. They're going to lowball me. I'm not interested. They move on. So you lose good candidates that way. The other thing that happens is you get people who apply because what do I have to lose? Maybe they'll offer me something better than what I want. So you're either way, you're losing people on both ends, right? You're getting poor qualified candidates in, and you're losing people who could be highly qualified on the other side. There's nothing wrong. People are afraid to put their job, the salary range up, because what if my lower number is higher than it needs to be? What if I could hire somebody for $80,000 and I posted this for $120,000? And I have to ask you this question. What if that $40,000 difference meant that you didn't find the person you wanted? Or what if it meant that, what if you paid somebody $40,000 more, but they actually filled the role? They actually did what you wanted. You were willing to pay this amount, right? So maybe they deserve that. Maybe it's irrelevant to the fact that they would have been happy to work for 80. Them getting paid 120 is going to make them way more likely to be very happy and stay where they are. And if they're producing for you, you're going to get a great result. So thinking this way is really, really restrictive minimalist thinking. It's stinking thinking, right? So I don't want you to get caught up on that. I want you to be very willing to commit to a bottom number and put that there. Now, I also want you to consider that there's a lot of other job postings out there. So if your bottom number, your beginning of the range, is just in alignment with everyone else's beginning of the range, or is even lower than them, again, you're shooting yourself in the foot, right? People are not going to, you're going to get flybys. But if your bottom of the range is the middle or top end of the range of everyone else, that's going to start getting people's attention. Now, I'm not telling you to overpay for a position. That is not the message. But chances are, when you're going to hire, a lot of other people have a salary range in there that's lowballing the marketplace. They're trying to attract people by their upper number. And I'm going to encourage you to make your upper number very large. Because if they perform, then that performance comp that you're going to do is going to allow them to perform at that level. So if I'm posting a job posting for, say, an attorney, so let's just use criminal defense attorney as an example. So my job posting might say the salary range is $120 to $350. Now, if somebody's getting paid $350 as a criminal defense attorney, they're probably one of the highest paid criminal defense attorneys in town. And they'll probably not leave. They'll probably be very happy as long as you're not a jerk as a boss, right? So that's great, but we're not going to pay them that unless they're performing at that level, right? I wouldn't pay them $350 unless they're doing $1.5 million of business for us. So if we then look at the base range, right? Like the 120, where does that fall? Are most postings out there from like 80 to 150? Great. I like the number 120 as the bottom. So that's the way I want you to think about this. Now you could add wording around it. You can say, um, base salary will be determined based on, experience, blah, blah, blah. You can put in that the salary range includes performance compensation, which is earned, and a performance compensation plan will be discussed, with a job offering, stuff like that, right? So you don't have to have all this figured out when you're doing the posting. What you do have to understand is that this post, it's a piece of marketing. And our job is to get their attention. Our job is to get them to take the next action. The next action, which might be to apply or to send a resume or to call or whatever the next, or book an appointment, whatever the next action is. All that job posting needs to do is get them to take the next action. And then we have to engage with them and work them through that pipeline and the filtration system of, are they somebody that we want to hire or not? Which then brings us to the process of filtering people through. I'm going to strongly encourage you not to do the filtration on the job posting side unless it's absolutely a no-go. So one thing that a lot of my clients have done is, on the job posting side, they might put something like 5 years experience required, or this is an in-office position. And then when 3 months in, 4 months in, they haven't got a qualified candidate, all of a sudden they're like, well, maybe they could work from home 1 or 2 days a week. Or maybe they can, if they're really good at what they do, maybe I'm okay with 2 to 3 years of experience. And we start backing off of those requirements. What I'm going to invite you to do is, as you're deciding what the requirements are on the job posting side, you're going to be as lenient as possible. You're going to ask yourself, if I'm sitting here 4 months from now and I haven't got a good candidate, is this something that I'm still going to say is required? Or am I going to be willing to back off of it to test and see who I can get? And I'm going to invite you to back off of those requirements that you would back off of if you didn't get results, and allow those applicants to come in and use your process of getting them through this interview and hiring process to filter out the people who are not good candidates, not qualified. On the other hand, if there is a qualification that is an absolute, this cannot, like we don't have an option. We cannot hire somebody if we don't have this requirement. Let's say you're hiring an attorney. They absolutely must be an attorney. And then you're thinking they have to be an attorney in my state. But do they? Or do they have to be willing to become an attorney in your state? Right? You got to ask yourself that question. So, but I would put a requirement, you must have a JD or must have a valid law license in one of the, 50 contiguous, states in the U.S. Whatever it is that you want. But now that allows you to easily have somebody on your team filter people out and narrow the pool, because you have that requirement in place. So on the one hand, we do want to have the absolutes, those requirements we want to have, and we want to use those to eliminate people who have applied anyway, even though they don't meet that criteria. But then the ones that we really wanted to have up there, but they're not absolutes, those we should determine as we're getting to know somebody and figure out whether this is somebody that I'm willing to push the envelope on this area, right? We get somebody who comes in and they're clearly like, they check all the boxes, but they only have 2 years experience, not 5. How much does that bother you? Is that something that is a no-go for you, or are you okay with hiring them? And chances are, if they checked all the other boxes, you have full confidence that they're going to be just as good as somebody with 5 years of experience. You're not going to care. So that's the thing that I want you to understand is, after the job posting, the marketing worked. Somebody took the action. They became a lead. Now I'm going to work through that lead and try to get them to a sale. But what's interesting is that we don't approach the sales process with the same way we approach the hiring process. The hiring process, we're looking to find reasons why they're not a good fit. And in sales, we're trying to get them to become a client, and we're not looking for reasons not to get them to become a client, which is very interesting because we should be treating both the same way, which means that there's value on both sides of it. There's value to try to convince them why they should be working for us, just like you would when you're trying to sell to somebody. And there's also value in trying to dissuade them from working for us, which we should be doing in sales also. In other words, in sales, we should be vetting for who's going to be a bad client and saying, no, we cannot serve you, instead of trying to serve everybody. When we're hiring, we're much better at filtering that. And we should be doing that on the sales side too. So in this process of taking them through, and there isn't a specific process, I can't tell you the step-by-steps. I can tell you that we do some basic things. We do a COBE assessment. We do a COBE assessment for the manager. So the prospect takes an A, the manager takes a C, and we match it, and they get a letter grade, how well those two match together. We rely a lot on that COBE, but it costs money. So we only give the COBE to somebody who's checked other boxes before. We have somebody on the team vet them initially just for attitude, just for likability, we just want to make sure that somebody else on the team thinks that they're worth having a conversation with. So that's step one. Like, we can have a low level, a lower cost person who, we're not taking a higher cost person and having them spend all their time with all these potential candidates, and we're filtering the process through. Then we have them do a core value assessment. We want to have a core value alignment. We want them to match at least 2 of our core values. 3 is even better, but 2 is the minimum. And we want to make sure that we have core value alignment. That's, again, something that can be delegated to a team member. It doesn't require anybody else to do it. After that, we have an initial conversation on the technical side. So we have somebody who's involved in their direct chain of command to figure out whether, they're, on a first pass, they have what it takes to do the job. We like them. We think that they initially check the boxes, and then we'll give them the COBE, and score the COBE. And then we'll have a more detailed interview process where, they're meeting key stakeholders and we're having those conversations. So it's a multi-step process. There's a lot of touch points with us. And I invite you to do the same. I think it's really important to not be in a rush when you're hiring, to understand that each of these steps is intended to be a filtration so if the step is not removing prospects, the step's probably unnecessary, right? Every step should be removing prospects. So we should be, think of a funnel, and this is really the same. That's why it's called a marketing funnel. In HR and with the hiring, it's the same thing. It's a funnel. We gotta look at it as like, okay, at the top, we're getting as many people in as possible. Then from there, we have our first step where we just check to see, compatibility with the team, and we eliminate a bunch. So now it's smaller. Then we go and we look at their core values, and we eliminate some more. It's even smaller. Now we go and we have a conversation, a technical conversation. We see if they have the skill set, they have what it takes to do the job, and we narrow a little bit more. Then we do the COBE assessment, narrow a little bit more. So we might have started with 100 applicants at the top, and by the time that we get to somebody who really wants to value their time, wants to have the conversation with the best people, maybe they're having a conversation with 10 people or 5 people out of the 100 that started. And that's all intentional. That's all needed, because ultimately you're not going to, those 100 applicants are not going to be good fits. We're looking for the 1 or 2 that are going to be a good fit. Some other things that are interesting to note, and we can have totally have separate episodes on some of these things. If you're building a sales team, always think of your sales team in hires of 2. Same thing with international VAs. It takes just as long to teach 2 people how to do the job than it does to teach 1. So always be hiring in twos for either low level jobs where I say low level, meaning they don't cost you a lot, and therefore the risk of bringing two on at the same time is lower. We can argue that you should be hiring in twos for every position in your business, but it's a lot harder to say bring on two attorneys than it is to say bring on two VAs. With sales is about 20% skill set and 80% drive and motivation. And it's very hard to assess drive and motivation in the interview process. Very hard, very difficult. You can assess for skill set, but skill set is only 20%. A skill set can be taught. Drive and motivation cannot. And that's why I'm a firm believer on the sales side that you hire at least two people at a time, because you're going to go through the effort and energy to onboard them, and they're going to be pitted against each other. They're going to, if there's drive and motivation there, they're going to each be trying to one up each other, and that's going to accelerate how quickly and how good they are. And then say you have a team of 4 people, you bring 2 more on. Well, who's to say the 4 that you have are the best salespeople out there? You bring 2 more on, and if you only brought 1, you're just adding the 1 person you needed. If you bring 2, you now have 6 people, and you get to choose who the bottom is and let that person go. Or you might just walk into that capacity and need everybody. But building a sales team effectively is a constant evolution of hiring A players, getting people to the top, and then dropping the bottom. And you're constantly evolving your team. So the way to do that is to always be hiring more than you need when it comes to sales. So there's different parts of the business where this makes more sense than others. But definitely those are things you should be thinking about in this process when you go through the hiring. And then there's giving the offer. And the offer, the base compensation is less important. Whatever they ask for, if it's within the realm of reason, I would encourage you not to try to lowball them. We almost always have an instinctive or intuitive desire to offer them something less than what they asked for. If you just think about it, if somebody says, hey, I'm getting 120 in my job now, I'm looking for 140, you're going to come in, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to offer you a job for 130. It's more than what you're getting now. And, maybe I can save $10,000. That's the wrong way to look at this. Is that really the right way that you want to start the relationship? Imagine on the sales side, imagine if you presented an opportunity to a client and the client said, yeah, I want to sign up, but I want to sign up for $5,000 less, right? On a a $20,000 offer, right? It doesn't feel good. It already sends off the warning bells of like, okay, this client's going to be a problem. Well, guess what? For the employee who you just worked through this whole process to get to the finish line is now going to have warning bells going off saying, this is what they're going to do to me. They're going to lowball me. This is what it's going to be like when I try to ask for a raise, when I want to have advancement in my career path. No, thank you. Or they say yes, you think you're a genius, but they don't enter with as much excitement as they would have if they just got what they asked for. So I would encourage you to reverse it. If they ask for 140, bring them on at 145, or bring them on at 140 and tell them you're actually bringing them on at 150. But the last $10,000, you're going to give them after 90 days when they hit certain requirements, and then that's their base. They're going to be so excited. They're going to be so eager to hit those milestones that you set. You're going to have so much more effectiveness and efficiency in the person you bring on by those simple tweaks, those simple things, which we don't really think about. We just do it. It's ingrained in us. But the reality is that we have an opportunity to do so much better. The last piece is performance compensation. We have a video out on our YouTube channel, all about performance comp, all about various bonus compensation options. And what I do think is important is, even if you think that your model might change, is that it's clear to the hire what their opportunity for bonus is. Employers typically, as they grow their firm, what I've seen, and I don't know, I haven't studied the whole market, but what I've seen with clients who come into me is if they bonus, which a lot of people like to do, it's a whim. It's a, I feel like bonusing today. There's extra money in the bank. I'm going to, here, like the Oprah, you get a car, right? Like I walk into the office, I'm like, here, you get $1,000, you get $500. It's completely arbitrary. There's nothing tied to it. And that type of bonusing makes you feel good, but does nothing for growing your business. What does do something for growing your business is when people know in advance that they could earn that bonus. When they know what efforts they have to do that will drive them earning that bonus. When those efforts that bonus is tied exactly to the things that are going to move the needle in your business to where you want to go. That is how you build a performance compensation plan. So just make sure that your performance comp plan is in alignment with what you're trying to build. It's in alignment with their role and the KPIs that they could be responsible for. And then make sure that you clarify or provide that when you make the hire. Let them know what that opportunity is. Let them know when it starts. Could be it only starts at the end of year 1. It could be it only starts at the end of year 2. It doesn't matter. They know it's there. They can start practicing for it. It's kind of like a friend of mine teaches options trading. And when people first come into his community, he teaches them how to open a fake account and do paper trading so that they're not doing it with real money. They're practicing on fake money. You can have your new employee practice hitting those milestones that are going to unlock the bonus so that when they are eligible for it, they can immediately know that they have access to it. And that'll make them more productive leading up to it, which is really what we're trying to do. So hopefully this made a lot of sense. So we covered a lot, and every one of these topics are things that we can go deeper on. And which, by the way, I'm not sure when this is airing, but we do have a workshop series that we do. There's one coming up we're doing in Miami, Florida, and then there's one after that in New Jersey. Let me actually pull up the landing page for this. Do I have it open? I thought I had it open. Here it is. So May 17th and 18th in the Hilton Cabana Miami Beach Resort in Miami Beach. We're going to be doing we call it the 100K per month solo law firm workshop, not just for solos, but for anybody who's not at 100K per month yet, whether it's revenue or profit. Highly impactful 2 days that we spend together. It's actually a day and a half, May 17th and 18th, and July 24th, 25th in Montville, New Jersey. So those are the 2 days that we have on the calendar right now. You can go to profitwithlaw.com/LFG2026, profitwithlaw.com/LFG, like let's F and go, or law firm growth, one or the other, 2026. That'll take you right to the registration page. We do have a discount there right now, which you can go ahead and book directly. And if you want to talk to somebody and see if it's a good fit, or you're not sure if now's the right time for you, you're not sure if you're ready yet, you want to have a conversation around it, then you want to book a call with Adam on my team, and he'll be happy to work through that with you and book that call. And we'd love to see you at one of these workshops. I think it's, we've had so many people go through the workshop and just have their minds blown, like complete aha moments, complete change in trajectory of what they do in their business, how they do in their business, and have completely unlocked the growth potential for themselves. Would love to see you there. Take care. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Bye for now.